are not gifts. Plaques or other similar personalized awards, those are not considered gifts. Certain honorary memberships, the use of a public facility that is made available by a governmental entity for a public purpose, and transportation provided to you by FAMU in relation to officially approved government business is not going to be considered a gift. The good news is that under the gift law, gifts from relatives can always be accepted and are not required to be reported and are not prohibited, no matter the value. So if your gift is from a relative, you are in the clear. But who's your relative? I mentioned when I talked about the voting conflict law, it had a very narrow definition of relative, but the gifts law has the broadest definition of relative. Of the specific relatives without limit. It includes someone with whom you intend to form a household, even if you're not related to them. It also includes someone who might share the same legal residence with you, even though you're not related. So any kind of roommate would fall under the definition of relative as well. I will note that somebody who's not considered a part of the definition of relative would be a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner, unless they're living with you. Those gifts could be subject to disclosure, potentially even gift limitations and prohibitions if that person happens to be a lobbyist of any sort. And we do have opinions related to that. CEO 16-1 dealt with a constitutional officer. It was I believe it was a school board member who had a friend, someone they were seeing who was a vendor or lobbyist of the school district. And so that opinion outlined the concerns that this official had about traveling and doing events with this person who was in their life, who I understand now is their spouse. And so they don't have to worry about the gift law anymore. So let's talk about a couple of definitions. As we talk about this, who is a lobbyist under the gift law? The definition of lobbyist is different. It's going to be any person who is paid, a person who is paid, who is seeking or who has sought within the last 12 months to influence governmental decision-making of a reporting individual, that's you, or other reporting individuals or procurement employees at FAMU, or anyone who is paid, who is seeking or sought to encourage the passage, defeat, or modification of any proposal or recommendation by you or by your agency. Also, the partner firms and principals of such people are lobbyists. This is a broad umbrella that encompasses lobbyists. We're talking about lobbyists of FAMU, people who are paid seeking to influence folks at FAMU. Also, we're talking about vendors. Business entities doing business with FAMU are also going to be a part of what I refer to, or what we refer to around here as restricted donors. It's going to be vendors, lobbyists, political committees under the gift laws are considered restricted donors. The first thing you want to know about restricted donors, vendors and lobbyists and partners, firms, and principals of them is that you cannot solicit a gift in any amount from a vendor or a lobbyist of FAMU. You cannot solicit a gift in any amount from a vendor or a lobbyist of FAMU. It's a gift for yourself, remember, a gift for another reporting individual, or a gift for a member of your immediate family or friend. So there is that restriction. In addition, you can accept a gift from a vendor or a lobbyist of FAMU if it's valued at less than $25 Of course, we're operating on the understanding that it's not prohibited by the expenditure ban. If it is allowable, there is no disclosure requirement if it's under $25. If the gift is from a vendor or a lobbyist or restricted donor, and it's between $25 and $100, you can accept it if it's not otherwise prohibited, except that the donor is supposed to report that they gave you that gift, what it is, and what the value was on a Form 30. That is the donor's responsibility to report, not yours. Finally, gifts over $100 from a vendor or a lobbyist that are offered to you are prohibited. You have a couple of options. You can pay for the gift, therefore you haven't received a gift. You can pay it down to get it under the $100 allowable limit if it's not otherwise prohibited, or you can decline it. Also, it's important to note that you can accept donations on behalf of charitable organizations as long as you pass those donations along as quickly as you can and don't maintain them in your possession for very long. That is also allowed. So let's go over that again. You can't solicit from a vendor or a lobbyist a gift in any amount, but you can accept a gift from them if it's $100 or less. Gifts between $25 and $100, the donor is supposed to report on a Form 30. Gifts from vendors or lobbyists that are under $25 do not have a reporting requirement and are acceptable. But what about gifts from everyone else? What if it's a gift that's not from a relative? It's not from a vendor or lobbyist. Maybe it's a gift from a friend. You may have a friend who is from out of state or even is in the state of Florida. They have nothing to do with government business or with FAMU or your service and the like, but perhaps they give you a gift, a birthday gift, a congratulatory gift, any kind of gift. If that gift is valued at over $100, you're going to have to report the gift on a Form 9. Again, we're talking about things that you receive for which you've not given equal or greater consideration within 90 days. You have 90 days to figure it out with the gift law. What did I receive? Who is it from? What is it worth? And what do I need to do now? And we get these calls very routinely. We're more than happy to help you navigate the gift laws. If you have to disclose a gift from somebody who's not a vendor or a lobbyist or a relative, and they've given you a gift that's over $100, it's a Form 9. That form's available for downloading on our website. It is not electronic. It is due on a quarterly basis, but only when you have something to report. And it is due no later than the end of the calendar quarter following the calendar quarter in which the gift is received. To state that more plainly, I'll give you an example. If you receive a gift over the holidays in December from a friend that is valued at more than $100, you're receiving that gift in the fourth quarter of the calendar year. Therefore, if you don't if you accept the gift, you don't pay for it, you don't pay it to be under $100, then you would need to report that gift no later than the end of March. That's the end of the first calendar quarter, following the quarter in which the gift is received. That disclosure is going to require you to give the name and address information of the person who gave you the gift, identify what the gift is, and an approximate value for the gift. If you happen to have a receipt, or if it's a ticket, something like that, you can attach a copy to the gift form. If it's a gift from somebody other than a vendor, a lobbyist, or a relative, and it's under $100, you don't have a reporting requirement. You can accept that gift and you don't need to worry. So how do we value these gifts? Well, the statute tells us, and there are a lot of rules related to gifts as well, and how we determine direct and indirect gifts and how we value those gifts. The valuation is in Rule Chapter 34-13.5. The fallback is going to be the actual cost to donor. unless there's a more specific valuation allotted in the statute. So if we're talking about transportation on a private plane, the statute tells us that that is going to be valued at the same rate as a comparable commercial conveyance. We have additional guidance that says unrestricted coach fare is how you would value travel on a private conveyance, such as an airplane. Lodging on consecutive nights would be a single gift. If you went to stay with a friend who wasn't a vendor or a lobbyist, you went to stay at their house to visit with them, and you stayed more than 2 nights with a valuation of $44 a night. By that third night, you're getting into over $100, where you might have a reporting requirement. Food consumed at a single sitting is a gift. The value of the meal, less taxes and gratuities, is going to be the value of that gift. Certain restaurants, you might end up at over $100. I want to talk a little bit about entrance fees and tickets. If you're given an entrance fee or a ticket, it's going to be the face value or the event basis, whichever is greater. If the ticket doesn't have a face value or shows a face value of 0, that's not the actual value of the ticket. There's likely other valuations that would be applicable. Also, if you receive 2 tickets from someone to go to a football game or go to the symphony, the value of the gift that you receive is the cost of the 2 tickets together, because you get to go to the event and you get to bring a guest, or you have possession of those tickets and maybe you give them to someone else. That's still a gift to you that would need to be valued and considered under the gift law. If you don't want the tickets, the best thing is to give them back. If you don't want to have to report the tickets that are not from a vendor or a lobbyist, you can always pay the cost of the tickets within 90 days, and you're going to be fine. If the gifts are given by a vendor or a lobbyist of Famu that's not otherwise restricted or banned, you can pay for the full value of the tickets and you've not received a gift, or you can buy down the value of the tickets to that $100 mark so it's no longer prohibited. Other things that end up being gifts where the commission has specific valuation and rules are luxury boxes or sky boxes. Attendance in those, there are costs related to staying in sky boxes that are generally over and above ticket costs. So you want to be mindful of that. Again, we have the 90 days to figure that out. As we wrap up today, and I know I've given you a lot of information, the things to remember: a public office is the public trust. We hold our positions to benefit the public, and we want to avoid conflicts of interest where we might put our public interest, our private interest above our public duty. Florida has a robust code of ethics that contains standards of conduct, disclosure requirements, and expenditure bans. And the Ethics Commission is here to help you navigate it, to be a resource for you, to talk to you in depth about situations that pertain to you, to help you avoid a conflict of interest. Let us be a resource for you. We want to help. We would much rather answer your questions on the front end than have to be faced with an investigation if somebody were to file a complaint. So please ask for guidance. Use those resources. Rika Calhoun right there on the FAMU campus, your compliance officer. I've heard great things, but also the Florida Commission on Ethics. You can email me, you can call the office. We're here every day and we look forward to serving you. If there are any questions, I know you have a lot of business to take care of for the remainder of the day, but please do not hesitate to reach out if you have specific questions about the presentation or about any area of the ethics law we can help you with. And with that, again, I'm so grateful to be included in your ongoing board training, and appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Director Stillman, for being with us today and for the robust and thorough information that you've shared with our board. Are there any questions or comments at this time? Trustee Crossman, you're recognized.
Thank you. First off, thank you, Ken, for that presentation. I appreciate Chair Harper providing the platform, because all that's so helpful and really good for all of us. I just had two questions of clarification. First, on the restricted donors, that makes sense to me that if we hire a construction company that's building something, we would not be asking that company to make a donation for those purposes. My only part of that is that we're a learning institution, and it feels to me like asking that group to be inclusive of students being aware of what's happening or going on tours, or can they come guest lecture in a class and tell what they're doing so the students get exposure to it. In that context of they're not asking for a donation but asking to be an ambassador for the university, like if they're doing that job and we're just saying, hey, as you're in the job, we'd like you to promote the university on your social media. Is in that context, is that kind of thing okay, or would that also be a problem?
Right. Well, the thing to keep in mind is that the ethics laws apply to the individual public officers and employees and prohibit things that enrich or specially benefit the officials where they've had a corrupt intent. So, situations where there is a benefit to an agency are not contemplated within the gift law. So, fundraising for a university, those are things that are supposed to be done, right? Those things don't in and of themselves cause a problem. Encouraging folks that you work with of being guest lecturers in your classrooms, letting students tour or see what they're doing. I don't see on its face, absent some other aggravating factors where there was some sort of quid pro quo mixed up in there, that would present any problem.
I just the second part of it is that I tend to be very relational in my worldview, and obviously really respecting the boundaries. And so it's funny sometimes when it comes to sunshine laws, the intent obviously is clear, but it can prevent relationships, right? Like sometimes I think we will be a better board of trustees as we get to know each other better. If we only talk to each other on Zoom a couple of times a year, it's going to be hard to know each other, right? So in my mind, like having more interaction, but not talking about those issues is healthy. And the same thing with when having vendors, you would not want to have a situation like, hey, vendor, you get this work, you give this business, that's clearly wrong. But having no interaction with the vendors, like, also seems wrong. So I just think that totally in the light, everything clear and appropriate, and setting expectation. I do think that people that are receiving payment from the university should be advocates of the university and advocates of our students. So I just want to sort of maybe for another time we could talk about it a little bit more, but I'd like to see more of that because our students in the university would benefit from more of that. That's all.
Absolutely. Breaking bread with one another does promote collegiality, getting to know one another on a personal level. I have a commission board. There's 9 members. We're subject also to the Sunshine Law, but that doesn't mean that we can't get to know one another, what our hobbies and interests are, what our families enjoy, find those commonalities. I think it makes for better boards. And the ethics laws aren't saying that you can't break bread with a vendor, right? Or that you can't break bread with a lobbyist. You just have to be careful of whether or not it's a banned expenditure where you would just need to pay your way.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the value of that meal is under $100 and it's not banned, then you're good to go. You can, not here to tell you can't go golfing with anyone that you would choose to go golfing with. But depending on what the costs are associated with going, you might want to make sure that you're paying for your own greens fees. So there's the ethics laws in terms of what they require mechanically. And then, of course, officials are always have a better understanding than we do in terms of what the optics might be.
I on another board, but state sunshine law things, I asked my contact, can I have my fellow board members' home addresses because I wanted to send them a Christmas card. And again, I'm just trying to, as a human, get to know them. And the person said, no, that's sunshine violation. We don't want any of that. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's what that's intended. And when we come back to leadership, again, like there's some humanness to that. We need to be able to interact. So we want to get it right. We want to get it right. And I think there's clear stuff that's easy, but there's also this human stuff we need to work on as well. I think we have some outstanding vendors that probably don't know they could be doing a lot to help our university and our students, but we have to communicate that.
Right.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks for that question. Thank you.
And Ms. Stillman, vendors can do co-sponsorships, right? Of events.
Right. There are often, corporate supporters who support universities or support cities or county functions. That type of thing in and of itself is not prohibited by the ethics laws. Again, the gift laws apply to us as reporting individuals in terms of what we personally can receive. It doesn't speak to a prohibition on universities having good community partners and statewide partners for the great work and things that they're doing.
Excellent. I don't see any additional hands at this time. Looking around. Okay, so with that, thank you so much, Ms. Stillman,
Thank you.
for being with us today and for enlightening us on these important ethics laws and our quest for ongoing training for the board. Thank you.
Thank you
very
so much. I look forward to meeting you all in person one day. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our final agenda topic for the retreat is the gift report. And to lead this conversation, I will turn it over to Trustee Michael White, who is chair of our Audit and Compliance Committee. Trustee White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is Mr. McLaughlin going to be on the call today as well, or is it just me?
Yes, he was just provided a link to the meeting and expects to join momentarily if he is not already joined.
I am on.
All right, thank you, sir. So again, thank you, Madam Chair. So to start off, there's an old adage that goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And after reviewing the report completed by Buchanan Ingersoll, it's very apparent to me that while there are a lot of people whose heart were in the right place, their actions were not becoming a FAMU excellence. There were several communication and internal control failures. I want to thank the BOG, Chancellor Rodriguez, Chair Lamb, and many others who have tarried these last few months with getting this report completed. There are several recommendations presented by Buchanan that I believe the board should prioritize. I will also encourage President Beard to not take this lightly. It is very apparent, it is imperative that we hold the banner of excellence high. FAMU is at the precipice of scaling to the next level. And in order for us to get there, we need a heightened level of efficiency, accountability, and transparency. I know we will get there because we are the social mobility, the #1 social mobility ladder that enables many of our students to go off to great success in the world. I will encourage our students, our executive leaders, our team members, our alumni, DSOs, and supporters to rally around President Beard in this time. I will now open up the floor for comments and questions. However, I ask that we as trustees tread lightly and allow President Beard to take the time to digest next steps. I will now pass it over to Mr. McLaughlin, whose firm led the investigation, to give some very high level remarks. And then from there, trustees will open it up from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee White. With respect to the report, it has been out since Monday, and I've had the pleasure to brief each individual trustee and provide an overview of the chronology of events. The key takeaways from this report and our findings are the drivers behind why this gift was accepted were leadership involvement and influence, the secrecy and non-disclosure, truncated timeline due to the commencement ceremony, and then lack of due diligence and understanding of private stock. These key drivers forced a truncated timeline and really forced a pressurized situation that resulted in the acceptance of the gift without the proper due diligence. It's not necessarily that there were policies and procedures that were wholly missed, but there were policies and procedures that were absent. There were policies and procedures that failed to require the president to provide certain information to the Board of Trustees in a timely manner, and policies and procedures which failed to force the executive director of the foundation to provide the foundation board the same type of information in that timely manner. As a result, both boards were unable to perform their fiduciary responsibilities. And we think that that was ultimately the key driver behind why there wasn't greater oversight and why the expertise that's inherent in both this board as well as the foundation board of directors directly resulted in this gift being accepted without further due diligence. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the report, as well as information that was not present in the report that we may have found during our investigation, and would like to open the floor to discussion and to questions.
Do we have any questions? Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized. Or is your hand just
Thank you,
up?
Trustee White.
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
have a quick question. In your report, thank you, Michael, for the detailed report that you did. In your report, you gave a recommendation of splitting 2 positions in the foundation. What was your thinking behind that? And then also, what are some of the takeaways that you found in terms of infrastructure and setup with the foundation that you see that we probably need to move forward with or consider?
Thank you, Vice Chair Gibbons. The recommendation was to separate the executive director of the foundation from the vice president for advancement within the university. And the driving factor behind that, or why we made that recommendation, was because these 2 positions should effectively serve as a check and balance to one another, where the vice president for advancement is really responsible for prioritizing the requirements of the university. The executive director of the foundation is responsible for ensuring that donations that are coming in are appropriately allocated, that the investments and the portfolio is being properly managed. Where those positions overlap, should a donation, for instance, in this situation, be presented, it may result in the priorities of the university being weighed more heavily than the due diligence that should be involved. And so the checks and balances in this specific case were missing. The other aspect of separating those 2 positions are where one is a university official answering directly to the president. The other is a direct support organization, also required to answer directly to the president, but in the same vein, having a responsibility to the board of directors for the foundation. The foundation policies currently permit the executive director of the foundation to unilaterally make a determination as to the disposition of any gift that comes in. This is in the foundation policy. This is an or, not an and. But the foundation or the executive director of the foundation may unilaterally make the determination as to whether to accept that gift. In a situation where you have the vice president for advancement who's responsible for prioritizing the requirements of the university, and the executive director whose responsibility it is to determine the disposition of the gift and whether or not that acceptance could be made. Again, we believe that the checks and balances are absent where the foundation director should be looking at the due diligence aspect of it in a vacuum or isolated from those requirements.
Thank you for
And
that.
any other recommendations that related to the makeup of how the board and some other stuff? I saw you pointed towards that in the report, but were there any things that stood out to you in terms of infrastructure and the makeup of our board that needed to be also looked at?
I think in this particular case, there was a situation where you had, as a member of the board of directors of the foundation, both the president and the vice president for alumni affairs as directors of the board for the foundation. Both those individuals bear fiduciary responsibility to the foundation, but both of those individuals were made to sign a confidentiality agreement as to the donor. And so they were precluded in carrying out their fiduciary responsibility to the board. Now, it's within statute and within Board of Governors guidance that the president be a member of the board of directors of the foundation, but it's not within the Board of Governors guidance that anyone beneath the president also be represented there. We think in this situation where you had 2 fiduciaries who essentially failed in their fiduciary responsibility to the foundation, it was a direct result of divided allegiance in the sense that if there is a vice president falling under the president of the university, who is being asked to keep confidential information that otherwise is pertinent to the fiduciary responsibilities of the other board members. The pressure to not disclose that information and not carry out fiduciary responsibility because that individual is a direct report to the president, it can be fairly high. We think this is another situation where there may be not necessarily a conflict of interest in the sense of ethics, but a conflict of interest in the sense of allegiance and where loyalties will lie when a president is asking someone to do something versus where the fiduciary responsibility may reside.
Thank you, Trustee White. No more questions. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank
Yes,
you, Trustee Gibbons. And again, just piggybacking on Mr. McLaughlin, there was some segregation of duties concerns that I did recognize that with splitting some of those responsibilities out will definitely help with the continuous success of making sure that everyone's able to complete their roles. Before I get to you, Trustee Lawson, Trustee Crossman, I saw you first.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin, thank you so much for your report. It's clear you did a lot of research, and I think this is going to help the entire university as it goes to another season and level. A couple really quick things. Just to confirm this, in your research, nothing was found to be done that was either illegal or in some personal financial gain by any member of the university. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Correct, sir. Okay, so nothing like that happened. But what did happen was poor decision making, and these are my words, but it seems like there was sort of a lack of common sense was ignored. There was sort of natural, maybe a better word there was normal, healthy policy that was ignored that would have prevented the situation. Is that the heart of it?
Yes, sir. I think it's both a lack of policy as it relates to this specific type of gift being private stock. And also a failure to use common sense in the sense that there are experts that are on both this board and the board of directors for the foundation whose expertise could have been relied upon, that could have been sought for guidance or for advice. And whether it was due to secrecy or hubris, that did not occur.
Yeah, and that feels like for us moving forward, that's really the deep dive of like, why did it happen and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? And then my last comment was, did you, or, and this could be maybe a question for somebody else, but was any comparison to the structure of our structure versus other state university structure in the same process around Florida? Was that thought about at all or looked at?
It was thought about, sir. We determined that was outside of the scope of this investigation,
Okay.
and we wanted to more narrowly focus on the chronology of events. But as we did look across the state of Florida, there were other situations, for instance, where presidents of other universities are on the foundation boards of director or are directors of the direct support organization for the university.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Again, I think this is going to be valuable for us to get to where we need to go. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Trustee Crossman. Trustee Gibbons and Crossman, can you please put your hands down? I'm not sure if you have another question, Trustee Gibbons, but it's just, thank you, sir. I have Klatt, then you, Lawson. I'm going in I'm going in order. Trustee Klatt.
All right, thank you. Crossman actually asked one of the questions that I had here as far as any illegal activity and personal gain, and the answer to that was no. The question that I have deals a little bit around the interviews that were conducted and the accuracy of the interviews. And then also, I guess, Trustee White, since you were the committee chair, I just want to verify or confirm that you were also spoken to from Michael's group in regards to the specific interviews and the information from the interviews that's in the report itself. So as a board, we can feel comfortable that the information listed was also vetted by the chair of the Board of Trustees that's over the audit committee.
Correct, Trustee Platt. I was in lockstep with Mr. McLaughlin and his team, as well with the BOG and their representatives who were part of the investigation as well.
All right, thank you. And the last piece, Mr. McLaughlin, in our conversation that we had on the update, We had a lot of discussion over the foundation and the policies and procedures. And I think we found a few of those, particularly that centered around private stock, where there was a gray area. The policies covered public stock, they covered cash, and then there was a slight gray area on the private stock issue. But overall, I think we both ended that conversation by saying that the policies and procedures that are in place by the foundation are very adequate. It's just that they did not have a chance to be implemented because the information wasn't passed down. Would that be correct?
The only caveat to that, Trustee Klatt, I would say is with specific respect to private stock, the policies and procedures of the foundation don't address private stock at all. And this was one of the gaps that we found was the foundation or those involved with accepting the gift really tried to fit a square peg into a round hole and utilize the in-kind gift process, which permits a donor to unilaterally provide a valuation prior to the gift or even after the gift has already been accepted. In a situation where the market value of a private stock is really difficult to determine, especially by an individual, and where the market forces create a sense of, or create volatility in that price, it's really imperative that that be conducted by a third party. And the policies and procedures by the foundation currently do not require that, but also don't distinguish between the acceptance of a gift of private stock versus the acceptance of a gift of real estate or of priceless art, for instance. And we believe that to be a gap.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Klatt. Trustee Lawson, you're not recognized.
Okay, thank you, Chair White and Attorney McLaughlin. Thank you. I did have an opportunity, as we all did, to have a one-on-one briefing with you that was extremely helpful. But I have a process question that may be more directed to Dr. Palm, and that is, now that we know what we know, and we know where there are some process gaps or opportunities and found in the foundation's procedure, when will that team come together to address those gaps and then determine how and which of their procedures they will adjust and change? Because their policies, any updated policy that they implement, will need to come back before our board for review, approval, et cetera. So I know that board needs an opportunity to digest this. So what's the timing for them to get their deep dive, or maybe they have just by reading the report? And then what would be their timing to come back and present to the board, our board of trustees, revisions to their internal operating procedures?
So I will defer to Dr. Palm for that answer. We have been working directly with Dr. Palm in his office on other matters and are happy to make ourselves available to support this process. But from a timeline perspective, I'll defer to Dr. Palm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, Trustee Lawson. Thank you for that question. One of the things that we were really waiting for was the report, as well as for the board to review the actual report itself and then have this particular meeting. I will work with President Beard as well as Chair LeBou and the actual foundation board, as well as the staff in advancement to go ahead and start working on these particular adjustments. We definitely wanted to wait until this report was official before we started any particular work in general to make sure that the investigation and everything was going to be complete with regards to any movement forward. But I can get back with you as soon as possible as we pull everybody together and President Beard is on board to really put together a timeline as well as implementation of these particular policies and procedures.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Palm. It's just, we're meeting again in September. I think the foundation board is in retreat format this week, I believe, but I think it's, as soon as possible, reasonably possible, between yourself, Dr. Beard, and the foundation board leadership, because there were some pretty important things that were called out in the report, particularly around the handling of stock, which is not uncommon, I believe, for our university to receive, whether it be corporate stock. I think mostly it is corporate stock, not private stock. And then the other question I had for us to contemplate, Dr. Beard and Dr. Palm, we still are in possession of a large number of shares of that organization. What is the appropriate process to completely unravel the agreement and return those shares to the owner?
Michael, do you want to go ahead and address that, or?
I certainly can, Dr. Palm. So thank you for that, Trustee Lawson. At this time, the university actually is, or the foundation is no longer in possession of that stock. When the transfer was effectuated via the Carta platform, it was done in a way that violated the terms of service of that platform. Essentially, rather than transferring stock, Mr. Jarami simply changed his cap table to identify the foundation as an owner of 15 million shares of the stock. That's not a proper way that the transfer agent permitted the stock to be transferred. And so on May 14th, that transfer was invalidated and the stock certificates that were in the foundation's possession were canceled. Moreover, the gift agreement that was signed on May 4th was a previous gift agreement and not the one that was in force. And so that gift agreement has been rendered void because Mr. Jarami signed the correct gift agreement, but it was never countersigned by the university. And therefore, even if that agreement were an effective stock transfer mechanism, which we also don't believe it was, that mechanism, that stock transfer agreement, so to speak, was not countersigned by the university. So at this point, beginning on May 14th, the university was no longer in possession of that stock and currently is not in possession of the stock.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Comment on Chair Lawson. This is very high priority, as you probably can assume, in terms of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. If you can put your hand down as well. Chair Harper, you now have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair White. And I do want to express also my appreciation to Michael McLaughlin, Trustee White, and Chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee, and all of those who were involved in completing this important investigation. You know, it is important that we learn and that this never happens again at FAMU or any other institution of higher learning. So thank you very much for the comprehensive nature of the report. A couple things that I want to mention and also ask. One is I do want to state for the record that the interviewees did not include anyone from the Foundation Board of Directors. It's understood that no one was involved in this transaction based on what we understand, but I do want to state that for the record, and as directors serve in a fiduciary relationship to the foundation, no one was interviewed. So I wanted to state that for the record. Also, I certainly don't talks about the concrete evidence of current donors ceasing contributions. And I'd just like to understand from Dr. Palm, what is our year-to-date, how is the foundation performing year-to-date relative to contributions and donors?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Harper. Just in general, just from our latest report from Monday, donors from 2023 compared to 2024, 2023 donors are 843 from year to date, and to 2024 is 868, 868 donors. So it seems like we're up a few donors with regards to last year. We talk about new cash from last year. We were at 1.58 million. It looks like we're right on track with that. We're at 1.41 million, a difference of about $167,000. In general, when we talk about total of cash pledges and planned gifts, however, the overall 2023 was at 2.78 million compared to where we are right now at 1.43 million, the difference in 1.35 million. That difference is at just one particular gift, which was a pledged corporate sponsor of 1.2 million, where we are at this particular time. So it looks like we're on track where we were last year with regards to some of the donations. Just received a note today of a $400,000 gift coming in and another $1,200 gift, $1.2 million gift coming in at the end of the month.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that information. So while this certainly may have had reputational damage for the university, I'm heartened to know that there's so much continued to be faith and trust with our donors as it relates to this great institution. The next question that I had, Trustee Lawson had already asked as it relates to the status of the transaction, and it sounds like the transaction is null and void from what I heard. And then finally, one of the recommendations is, two of the recommendations on page 63 and 64 have to do with informing the Board of Trustees of donations over a certain amount, as well as how that information will be shared with the Board of Trustees and our fiduciary responsibilities to the university. And what I want to ensure is that as both the foundation as well as the president and his administration evaluate, and the board evaluate these recommendations, I want to make sure that we are staying in compliance with donor confidentiality laws, with state of Florida laws, and that there are proper measures that are put in place so that we don't compromise our FAMU's ability to receive and solicit legitimate gifts by donors. I want to make sure that we are balancing our fiduciary responsibilities with the law and with donor confidentiality that is prescribed by law, and with the policies that are in place or that need to be revised. And that concludes my comments, unless there's any reply to that.
Thank you for that, Chair Harper.
I have a comment whenever somebody recognizes me.
Yes, sir. You're now next in line. How you doing, Judge Perry? You're recognized.
Fine, Chair White. One of the things I can say, the report was quite comprehensive. I think as we take a look at this, we also need to get outside expertise in putting together a rewrite of our gift acceptance policy and the various layers that need to be there to protect us. I think it also raises the question as to whether or not we should look at all policies and procedures dealing with the foundation with gift acceptance policy and how we handle investments and everything else, so that we won't get placed in this position again and put some redundancy. I would strongly urge the administration and this board to consider retaining a firm with the expertise that we need to help craft the policies. As we can see, when you deal with stock and other gifts, it's not your run-of-the-mill thing. There are certain steps that you have to take to make sure that these gifts are in fact what they are in certain steps, and we have to put a fail-safe system in to make sure that the proper people are notified. And being a public institution, while we protect donor confidentiality, there are certain things that this board needs to be aware of. Thank you, Chair White, for letting me make those statements.
Thank you, Judge. And I certainly agree with your assessment as well. Trustee Clapp, I see your hand is raised. You're now recognized.
Yes, I wanted to ask Dr. Palm if he could make note of item 1, which is gift description, and item 6C, which is non-cash and in-kind gift. And I'd like to have a further conversation with you, Dr. Palm, over that to make sure I understand that. And I want to make sure that item 6C, if there are any adjustments that need to be made with that, if it's good the way that it is, and if we just need to find a way to include private stock in that. I understand the recommendation of having a third party take a look at the foundation, and maybe I'm not explaining it exactly how Judge Perry did, but I would suggest that the Board of Trustees have a conversation with the foundation board to discuss the policies and procedures first. Because if we have a document and we don't understand the document, or we haven't all reviewed the document, then getting a third party to come in and review the document is kind of a little bit jumping the gun. It still doesn't allow us to ask the right questions of the third party when they come back with a recommendation. So that would be my recommendation, that as the board, we have a meeting with the foundation board to specifically discuss the policies and procedures so that we have a better understanding of that. Dr. Palmer, I understand that you are the acting university advancement person, but you've had that role for 3 or 4 months. So I would not expect for you to be an expert at that at this time. Maybe you are. I also understand that your role as COO is less than 24 months with the university. So I'm almost certain that you don't have an expert opinion on the foundation board's policies and procedures. And I think as a board, to be able to govern, we need to have more information on what is the thought of our current policies and procedures, and how did the foundation get to that point? And I think that information could be provided to us by the foundation board, because in this entire process, I think we've completely just bypassed the foundation board and what they've done thus far. And I think this report clearly states and shows that the Board of Trustees nor the foundation board was informed of any of this. So before we fix something, let's find out if it's broke. Those are my comments.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Trustee Platt. Trustee Gibbons, do you have something, or is your hand just raised from the last time?
No, I have something, sir.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I wanted to concur with Trustee Clatt. I actually wholeheartedly agree with his comments. I will say, but because at the end of the day, I think there's a big misconception about a lot of this. I think that the foundation board is a good board, number one. Let me say that, of well-intentioned individuals who all are working very hard to help us raise money. But at the end of the day, and I think Mr. McLaughlin and Judge Perry would agree with this, at the end of the day, the buck stops as fiduciaries with us as a board. So anything that's done over there, if it's not done correctly, if the rules, policies, procedures, anything happens, at the end of the day, we are the fiduciaries as a body. We're the fiduciary hand of the university. So I agree with Trustee Clyde. I think we should have that joint meeting. We should have a larger discussion about what direct support means, meaning that, it's a volunteer role. It is important, but you are in the support of the university, and to make sure that, we have some clarity around what they'd like to see, and then they have some clarity around what we would like to see to protect the interest of the entire university. That's what we're put here for. We're all confirmed by the Senate. So that being said, we really need to be careful about all policies throughout the university, because we could be held liable or responsible at some point if we're not carrying out our job in the right manner and way. Thanks, Trustee Chair White.
Thank you for that, Trustee Gibbons. I will interject really quickly. After reviewing the report I'm not sure the technology the foundation is using, but sometimes it's good to have different project management softwares that can show where different processes are checked off. And this could have been one of those areas, especially at the beginning with the due diligence side, because that is one of the main drivers that really spiraled out of control, in my opinion. And so if we would have saw that was done before, it could have been a different conversation than someone saying, I thought it was done and then it wasn't. So I do believe there is an opportunity for us also to bring in some technology, not just policies. Policies are great, but if they don't have any teeth, it doesn't matter. And that's something that in my short term of life that I've realized that is if you don't have if you don't have actions that follow those procedures being broken, then you're kind of just creating even more policies and procedures for the sake of creating them. So we need to make sure that there is some teeth there, but also we need to make sure that we have the right technology so that we are giving the team members what they need to be successful. So Dr. Ali, Trustee Ali, and then we'll have COO Palm.
Thank you, Chair White. And my question is for Michael. How was the connection between the advisory council and your firm, and how we can get legal protections on the future, especially with the private gift?
So the firm,
So
when
we can
undertook-
actually protect the future present too. So it's not just the policy and the procedures, but also the legal aspects, and because you already have a great legal background. So you are a law firm dealing with our advisory council. How was that?
So our role was specifically non-legal in function, and we were conducting this investigation as an outside third-party independent investigation firm, and we ensured that every interview we conducted and all of our briefings, we made clear that we were not operating in the capacity of attorneys and not offering legal advice, and that all of the discussions we were having were not subject to privilege. That being said, our investigation was very much driven by our legal background, our legal experiences, and the team was robust in the sense that we have conducted multiple internal investigations on behalf of nonprofit organizations, state institutions, and corporate entities. And so we brought that experience to bear. Looking forward, our primary goal was to ensure that the information we were putting forward was factual, that we were putting forth the chronology of events as they occurred and identifying the shortfalls within the university. All the while, we were looking to ensure that going forward in the recommendations we were making, we're going to put the university in the most defensible position from a legal perspective, such that this wouldn't happen again. In the event that it did, that the Board of Trustees would have adequate information such that they could carry out their fiduciary responsibility and ensure that any legal liability that would flow therefrom was mitigated as best as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
COO Palm, you are now recognized.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to also say simultaneously, of course, the foundation board is going through the retreat as we speak at this particular time. And this conversation aligns exactly what we've been talking about over the last 2 days. But also, they also had really wanted to initiate somewhat of a policy review as far as procedures as well. But again, they were really truly holding off until this report came out. And so, again, I think it's timely, Trustee Klatt, that we do get back together with not only our Board of Trustees, but also the Foundation Board to really work through these particular important high-level issues to really put FAMU in a very good space. So yeah, I just want to let you know, and we have a group of phenomenal directors over there that also have the expertise to really help us along the line there. So yeah, just want to make sure that that was noted.
Thank you for that, COO Palm. Trustee Lawson, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Chair White. Just one last question for Mr. McLaughlin. As you come up with these recommendations, were you also able to look at other foundations across the SUS? Because there are some very large foundations across the SUS that I'm sure have faced a number of issues dealing, whether it be with stock or other types of financial instruments, et cetera. So were we able to look at some of the other foundations across the SUS as we are developing these recommendations? And again, this is for Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. So in general, we didn't review all of the policies and procedures from other universities. We focused exclusively on the FAMU Foundation policies and procedures. We did request information and speak candidly with the Board of Governors and representatives from the university system about other foundation policies, but that was more testimonial than reviewing the documents themselves. In the interest of time, we thought that would have been outside of the scope and would have extended this. That being said, we think that would be a fruitful endeavor to look across the university system and determine where the FAMU Foundation falls with respect to its policies against the backdrop of other university foundations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. And the second part of my comment, Chair White, is, I mean, we all clearly get the gravity of this situation and what we individually believe needs to happen next. You know, I could repeat what Trustee Klatt said and what Trustee Gibbons said. I think we'd be saying the same thing, that the foundation board needs an opportunity to review these findings, start their process, probably with some degree of outside help, probably with a lens for how other foundations around the system are run. So I guess what I'm looking for from Dr. Palm and Dr. Beard would be a timeline, not today, but a timeline of how and when these events are going to take place and who will be involved, because I think it's really imperative for us to not only repair the gaps that we've identified, but then also create confidence in our external audience that we've made the appropriate repairs. And that, you know, takes a little bit of a process, but it also takes some heavy lifting that we have done things before we start advertising what we've done. So, you know, Dr. Beard and Dr. Palm, I would ask for you all to team up, and maybe as soon as September, when we reconvene, there is an outline of work that you all can share with us as far as the things that are to be done. And I realize they won't all be done by then, so I'm realistic, but I think it's imperative that we see a draft of work, you know, for how this will get done and what resources, you know, you've heard a lot of good recommendations from around the board. I won't repeat those, need to be brought to bear in order for us to make this a, you know, just like we talked about yesterday, we're, you know, thinking about a future president, make this a world-class organization as it should be, as it probably already is really close to, given their success. But I just want to make sure that, you know, we zero in on that as we look towards September.
Yes, and Trustee Lawson, I will definitely work with President Beard and CEO Palm to start preparing for the September board meeting to really get, it's like you said, a timeline. I know we have a lot of different things going on. We just got hit with the Hurricane Debbie. So there's some gaps there. Then also we also are getting ready to launch the fall semester. So as I prioritize this as much as anyone else. However, I'm very cognizant as well that there's a lot of other things, moving factors that are happening right now. And so I just ask the board to bear with us, but this is something that's number one on my priority list. President Beard, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Trustee White. I just want to say I have 10 years at least experience dealing with a board of trustees and a foundation board at my previous institution. There are templates out there that are very functional, very healthy for what we're dealing with. This is an area of gift acceptance. There's a way to cross kind of check the appropriateness of a gift, and we will bring some of that knowledge to the table. But this is very high priority for us. Just wanted to make that announcement today. Thank you.
Thank you, President Beard. Chair Harper, you're recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate the robust conversation as well as the recommendation to leverage the brilliance of our FAMU Foundation Board of Directors and having a joint meeting. And if it makes sense to have specialized outside counsel to engage in that meeting, you know, I leave that up to the president and his team. As we are looking at best practices at our sister institutions and reevaluating the policies, procedures, and/or bylaws, I would also ask that we take a look at what is the relationship between the foundation and the board of trustees. As we all know, the foundation is one of the direct service organizations that the board of trustees has established. The board, as you know, we have fiduciary responsibilities, and the bylaws of the FAMU Foundation also refer to fiduciary responsibilities, as I mentioned earlier. So I'd like to get clarity on how those two intermingle and if that is also consistent with best practices as we are taking our practices, policies, procedures, and culture to the next level. Thank you.
I would imagine that's for you, Michael. Ms. McLaughlin.
And I'm happy to respond there. Thank you, Chair Harper. With specific respect to the interplay between the Foundation Board of Directors, the Foundation writ large, and the Board of Trustees, one of our key findings also was the relationship between the Executive Director of the Foundation and the Foundation Board. So because the Executive Director is appointed and serves at the pleasure of the President, that Executive Director is at the operating at the direction of a single foundation board member, but also that there is no real direct relationship from an employment perspective between the foundation board of directors and that executive director, because the president is the only one who can make the personnel decision with respect to the executive director of the foundation, and the president serves at the pleasure of the board of trustees. Essentially, the way that the Board of Trustees promotes or provides guidance oversight of the operations of the foundation is by, with, and through the president. Whether that comports with other university foundations, that was outside of the scope of our investigation, but we found it interesting to note because the executive director of the foundation, being a direct report to the president, and operating at the pleasure of the president, that is one way in which the Board of Trustees can exert specific control over the foundation or specific influence within the foundation outside of the Board of Directors and outside of the traditional construct.
And that's helpful as it relates to personnel. And certainly the report also recommended that the executive director of the foundation continue to report to the president. My question also had to do with fiduciary responsibilities of the two entities. And Mr. McLaughlin, you may or may not be the expert on that, and we may or may not have the answer. And I'm not necessarily expecting that we do right now. It's something that I ask that we consider as we move forward, and learn from this situation.
Yes, ma'am. I would very much agree with that.
All right. Thank you for that, Chair Harper. Chair Cladd, I'm going to get to you right after Trustee Reed. Trustee Reed, you're recognized. Trustee Reed. All right, Trustee Cladd, you have the floor.
Yeah, just really quick. I would like to remind the board that all of the DSOs have a board of trustee liaison to include the foundation. And that liaison should interact with the head of the foundation. Obviously, we had a breakdown here. We've always acknowledged there was a breakdown here. But again, we can't reinvent the wheel because there's a board liaison for the foundation. Chair Harper, I believe, before you became chair, you were the board liaison to the foundation, and I can't recall who the board liaison is currently, but the chief of staff can let us know who that person is. But we have a board liaison on the board of trustees for the foundation.
And if I may clarify, okay, I've in my capacity as a trustee over the past nearly 5 years, I have never served in the role of liaison. I've served in the role of liaison to the NAA. However, our current liaison for the foundation is Trustee Crossman. Just as a point of information.
There you go. So we have a board of trustee liaison. That's the point.
Yep. All righty. Well, I thank you all for the robust conversations. I will now open the floor for President Beard and Chair Harper to have the last words, and then we will adjourn.
Well, I just want to thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee White, and to all the board members for 2 days of very robust conversations. I do want to say, back to this particular topic, we do have templates that we've looked at other institutions, including my previous institution. A lot of what we do here is the same, some differences that I believe will make a difference going forward. But overall, I think we've had 2 great days. We're looking forward, as you said, Trustee White, to the kickoff of another academic year. And my theme is FAMU forward, FAMU forever, no excuses, let's get the job done. So I look forward to working with you all throughout the year. It is my hope to at least talk to each of you monthly, whether we have a meeting or not. So hopefully you'll answer my calls or my emails or my texts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Beard. Chair Harper.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you, Chair White, for leading this effort. Again, thank you to Mr. McLaughlin and your firm, to the Board of Governors, the Inspector General, for your engagement in this work, and certainly to all trustees for your commitment to this institution, as well as to the Board of Directors and all staff members and administrators who are doing their best doing their best. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn, to grow, to go to the next level. And I do look forward to the report out from President Beard at our September meeting around the next steps. Specifically, there is a corrective action approach that is typically used when it comes to items within the Division of Audit across the university. And I would ask that we follow our typical processes and continue to work with a sense of accountability and integrity in doing the right thing and taking FAMU to the next level. So thank you everyone for this robust conversation and for your commitment to FAMU.
I believe that's all I have. That's all, folks.
Okay, all right, thank you. So this portion of our retreat is now adjourned. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 12:02, and we will start our board meeting. Thank you so much.
And please do not cancel the meeting, Narissa. Let's keep
Yes.
it on. Thank you.
Thank you. when you are back, if you don't mind turning on your camera so we'll know how many we have.
And right now, if we can just have the trustees on camera. Thank you.
One, two, three, four. Yeah, I count 6 thus far. If you're a trustee and you're back on, please turn on your camera so we know that you are here so that we can wrap up for the day.
Trustee Clatt, Trustee May, if you can turn your cameras on so we can see you.
And it looks like Trustee Figures has dropped off. Trustee Reed, I don't see.
Trustee Reed is having some internet problems. He
I saw
put it
that.
in the chat. So yeah, he may be in and out.
Okay. And Linda, I'm not sure if there's a telephone option that he may be able to utilize. No Zoom.
Melissa could answer that question.
We'll reach out to Trustee Reed to get him on, if at all possible, via a telephone option. We're working that right.
Okay, and Trustee May, are you here? You could turn on your camera. If so.
You do have a quorum
Okay.
that's present.
Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started for the sake of time. And since we do have a quorum. So welcome to the meeting of the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees. I call this meeting to order. Attorney Barge Miles, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Ali, Trustee Clatt, Trustee Clatt,
Present.
Trustee Crossman, Trustee Figures, Trustee Gibbons,
Here.
Trustee Harper,
Present.
Trustee Lawson,
Here.
Trustee May, Trustee Perry,
Here.
Trustee Reed, Trustee Stone,
Present.
Trustee Washington,
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So it's now time for public comments. Each person recognized for the purpose of public comment shall limit his or her comments to agenda matters currently before the board. The speaker shall give his or her name and shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a body and not to any member thereof, nor to members of the audience. Attorney Barge Miles, did anyone request to make public comments?
No, there were no requests for public comments today.
Thank you. We will move on to the matters of the day, starting with Board of Trustees Policy 2005-05, preparation and submission of the budget. Trustee Craig Reed will provide this update. You are now recognized. Well, Trustee Reed is not here. So who is the vice chair? I know that VP Brown, you are presenting, and we're scheduled to present along with Trustee Reed.
Yes, if you like, Madam Chair, I can proceed with the presentation.
Okay, please do.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, and members to the board. Greetings, and President Beard. Today, we are coming before the board because we are asking for an amendment to BOT Policy 2005-05, which is titled Preparation and Submission of the Budget. It is customary that federal, state, and Board of Governors mandates are issued that will impact the current BOT policy. Some of the mandatory changes are listed on screen. Historically, our practice has been to amend the policy as mandates are received. Today, we are proposing an amendment that will streamline this practice, allow the institution to immediately apply mandated changes, and to initiate the technical or substantive amendments to this regulation as appropriate. Be advised that this board will be periodically updated of the mandated changes. The university's policy office has conducted a comprehensive review of the policy, and the marked up version was provided in your materials. We do recommend that the Board of Trustees approve amendment to BOT Policy 2005-05, preparation and submission of budget. And that concludes the presentation, Madam Chair. I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the recommendation BOT Policy 2005-05, preparation and submission of the budget. Is there any unreadiness at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries. The next topic is on our agenda is the re-election of foundation board members. This was discussed during the DSO meeting last week without resolution and moved to the full board for our consideration. I believe there are additional information that will clarify the length of service of the directors, their giving history, and the foundation board requirements. Trustee Devron Gibbons and COO Palm will provide an update. You're recognized at this time, Trustee Gibbons.
Madam Chair, we took this off the agenda at this appropriate time. At this time, we're going to do this in September so that we can have all of the information to the trustees related to rules and regulations, when people started, and also all of the facts related to giving and getting related to the foundation.
Okay, so this was on our agenda. So in order to table an item on the agenda that needs to be voted upon, is it the, can you help clarify, Trustee Gibbons, what information is missing such that this board can't take action?
Well, the one thing is we would, as the DSO chair, we wanted to get the proper information related to give what was gifted or given and raised, and also a breakdown of the actual rules related to the foundation and the length of time that people actually have been on the board. There was some information that we got was not correct in the way that we asked for it. And so I would ask that we table this until September.
And COO Palm, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. And so in order to postpone a motion and table, it does require a motion as well as a majority vote. So I will entertain a motion at this time if the board chooses to table this item.
This is trustee Perry. I would move that we table this item into our meeting in September.
Second.
It's been properly moved to table this agenda item to the meeting in September. Is there any unreadiness at this time? Hearing none. All those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries. The next topic on the agenda is the approval of the FAMU Foundation 2024-2025 budget. Trustee Devron Gibbons and COO Palm will provide an update. You're recognized at this time.
Dr. Palm, would you like to start out or you would want me to go ahead?
You can go ahead. You have it?
Yep, I got it right here. Thank you, Madam Chair. The DSO and Athletics Committee met on July 30th and approved the FY 24-25 operating budget for all direct support organizations. The FAMU Foundation Executive Committee met on August 7th and approved an amended operating budget to include funding for an interim President Beer's salary. COO Palm is here if you have any questions related to this amended budget. Seeing no questions.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you don't mind highlighting the major changes in the budget for this year versus last fiscal year, COO Palm, I would appreciate that.
See if do we have the access to someone to pull up the budget itself? I'm sorry. And then I also have Latasha Adams there to help me walk through it. So, Latasha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I can actually start. As you can see in red here, the major difference again with the contingency revenue. Last year was $700,000. It is this year $299,000, and this is really part of the president's salary that we were able to pull from contingency funds. The other major difference, if you take a look at expenditures, university advancement and staff salaries and benefits, you see this $57,000. This was actually incorporated into this year's salary this year's budget to really address the salary of a gift officer for both athletics as well as for the music and as well as the Marching 100. So that's another additional major change within the actual budget itself. If you move down further, as you see that 299, again, you see in the red here, the interim university president's compensation, 325, 320, plus the bonus of 64,000. That comes up to about $389,000. Again, the 299 actually incorporates that particular cost within to his actual salary itself. We're able to leverage some of the bonus from the former president with regards to bringing down to 299, the total amount that we were going to actually provide for the president's salary itself. And then, of course, as you can see, the athletic scholarship and support general, as well as the university executive support, this is actually was voted on in special appropriation from the foundation board with regards to leveraging the contingency funds for those particular things. If need be, as we move forward into the semester, we need to come forward again with more additional support for athletic scholarships, support as well as general. We'll have to take it back through the foundation board for that additional money itself. And that is basically some of the major changes from last year's salary. I'll let Latasha, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't have anything to add, but I can answer any questions.
Okay.
Thank you for providing that overview. So one comment and one follow-up question. So I'm heartened to see that the foundation has added that position of a gift officer for athletics in the Marching 100. That was a conversation we had in May as we talked about the sustainability of athletics and the opportunity to leverage and the strength of the brand for FAMU, for athletics, and also for the Marching 100, particularly given the budgeting parameters that we are faced with, particularly within athletics. So I am really excited about that gift officer as we move toward a more sustainable athletics enterprise. Can you just repeat what you said as it relates to the athletics scholarship support and why that was taken from $400,000 down to zero?
I have Latasha go ahead and address that itself and how the process of getting that back.
Yes, there were never any funds on that line, and when we gave $700,000 last year from our contingency, which 400 of it was for the scholarships, and then I think we gave 100 for the band and 200 for the AD. It was only given a contingency for 1 year, so we didn't have anything on the line prior to that.
And in prior years, what did the foundation contribute to athletics? And I believe you also said the Marching 100, or is it just limited to athletics?
No, it was the Marching 100. It was $100,000 and 400 for scholarships and 200 for the AD discretionary.
And in previous years, do you have that historical insight?
Well, the year prior to that, it was 550. I would have to give you the breakdown of that, but I know a portion of that was for the athletics also.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's been a history for at least 2 years of
Yes.
the foundation contributing to athletics and the Marching 100. And the rationale, just help me understand one more time because I'm not. The rationale for taking it to zero is what?
For the scholarships, there is budgeted, we didn't have anything on the line. So once they use it during that year, then we take it back down to what the original budget line item was.
Okay, and is that the historical practice that it's not budgeted proactively, but as funds
Correct.
become available, a vote can be taken, and this is the historical practice of the foundation?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Gibbons, are you still there?
I am. Are there any more questions of the trustees?
This is Trustee White. I have a question.
White, Trustee Washington?
Thank you. Good. Thank you. I'm going to lean in, on Chair Harper's point again. I'm a little bit confused as to why we choose to back in these athletics scholarships. If it is something that we have been doing historically, it doesn't seem prudent as a fiduciary matter to make it zero if we have some level of certainty that there will be that ask. And then my question is, where is the source of the contingency? If we don't have it in the initial budget as a revenue source, where do those contingency funds come from?
The contingency funds come from the revenue that's generated from the fees. And so during the year, we generate the revenue and fees. And most of the time, we generate more than we've budgeted for. And so the contingency is at the end of the year.
Oh, that the contingency fund, if we don't use it, what happens to it?
We leave it in the account and then we just earn interest on it.
In the endowment account? Or which account?
No, ma'am, just a regular operating account.
Gotcha. So
Checking account, operating checking account.
Okay. I understand that it's been prior practice to do this on the back end, but if we know that it is something that is coming forward every year and that's going to be an ask, I would encourage us to find a better way to do the budget reconciliation on the front end and anticipate those charges.
Sure.
I agree. Trustee Gibbons?
Any more questions from the trustees? Trustee Clark, you recognize?
Yes. I guess this is, excuse me, this is more for President Beard. We understand you've got an awful lot on your plate right now, and you're in the first you're in the first 10 days. At some point, we need to have a deeper. I would ask that you, President Beard, have a deeper conversation with the athletic director and the foundation in regards to athletics and the 100. Because I believe, and I'm not going to speak for the foundation, that the requests have come on an annual basis. And many times the request has come after their budget has been prepared for these funds. And we cannot operate a business like this. We understand athletics is going to be there. We understand there's been some turmoil in the number of athletic directors that we've had, which has caused some instability. We understand we've had a number of CFOs that's caused some instability. We need to get to a point to where we have a budget for athletics on a reoccurring basis, so the foundation isn't continually pressed and asked after their budget is set for additional funds. So at some point, it's my thought that this is what an athletic director is for, the budgeting piece of it. The athletic director is the senior administrator in athletics. We haven't had stability in that position. That's shame on us. We have to get to this point of having this cohesive CFO, foundation, athletic director, and president so that we can get this budget controlled so that we don't continue to do this. So that would be my ask, President Beard.
Certainly well received, and we'll proceed to make sure that this is in line with your request and what should happen. Thank you, sir.
Any more questions of CEO Palm or any more comments? I don't see any hands. Madam Chair, I don't see any more discussion. I would ask that I make a motion that we move accept the amended budget of the FY 2024 budget from the foundation at this time.
I can second that, sorry.
Was there a second?
Trustee Washington.
Trustee White, okay, awesome. Madam
I would
Chair.
offer a friendly amendment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I offer a friendly amendment for your consideration as the maker of the motion that the president or the appropriate person from the administration come back and reevaluate, building in what we anticipate will be a expense and or an investment, depending on the way that you look at it, in athletics. So I would ask that that be accepted as a friendly amendment to come back based on history.
I accept amendment. Trustee, you okay with second amendment?
Yes, that is perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that back, Chair.
It's been probably moved. Signify by saying aye.
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 Chair's back. I think that's all the business that we have for the DSOs.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I couldn't, can you repeat what you said
I
last?
was saying, I think, no, I said that, I think that was all of the business before us as from the DSO's committee.
Thank you so much. Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't know if this belongs directly in DSO or if it belongs in budget, but I want to thank COO Palm for handing me some additional information around the breakdown of the annual fundraising activities. I would like for us, I think this goes to the question around sort of the budgeting and things, to figure out a better way to report the breakouts of the fundraising fundraising categories annually. Because right now we know we put into, President Robinson's annual goal, a fundraising amount, but we as trustees never really see how that money gets dispersed. I think it's important for us to understand how much restricted and unrestricted and where those fund sources go, in a way that helps us better understand what funds are available to support some of these budget issues. Thanks, CO Palm. I had some additional questions which I'll answer or get answered offline, but there's $26 million that we raised this year, and some of that goes into, all of it goes into supporting the institution, but we don't see it on a budget the same way we see the operating expenditures, and some of that does support operating expenditures. This is just money that I'd like for us to be able to see in a clean, transparent way as it comes in and goes out.
Thank you for that comment, Trustee Washington. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
Thank you. So two comments. One is for the overall budgeting process. I can, pretty much know going into every year where we start off about $1.2 million in the red in athletics. What would be great to start doing, and we were trying to get there last year, is to put a fence around those funds that may reside in other budgets, whether they be foundation, whether they be auxiliaries, whether they be wherever, because we know based on our budget authority that we give athletics, there's about a $1.2 million gap. So I think in the budgeting process, we can get tighter in pre-identifying those funds. That's one. And then number two kind of goes back to this discussion we need to have around the foundation. I was listening to how the surplus, I can't think of the name of the term, is generated off fees, but those fees are off of NAA funds, off of investments, off of a number of things. So does that surplus then get given back to those individual entities that generated them versus in a general bucket? So it's more of an open-ended question that hopefully, Dr. Palm, as we better understand and address processes within the foundation, we can address, because it just struck me that different entities are generating these fees, but they're not able to utilize that excess money that's generated. It's going into a general fund.
Yeah, Trustee Lawson, we'll take a look at that.
And I believe you may have been referring to the contingency revenue, Trustee Lawson?
That's the term I was looking for. Yes, thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Trustee Lawson and COO Palm. Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. Just real quick, related to the other item, I want to be clear that there's no, we have no problems with any of the folks that came forward. But I think if we learned anything today after listening to Mike McLaughlin, is that we want to give the proper information to all trustees in a digested manner, so that we're able to make accurate decisions based upon some reports. And thank you, Trustee Washington, for pointing out what COO Palm has done. We have been working on some deep dives to make sure that we have a legitimate way of giving you all information that is accurate, number one, and number two, that it can be understood so that you can make good decisions. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think at this time we are ready to move forward with our next agenda item, which is the employment agreement for Coach Patrick Crary. It's been before us several times now. We need to make a decision. During the DSO meeting last week, the committee recommended a one-year agreement with incentives. VP Sykes and Attorney Self will provide the update, and you are recognized at this time.
Madam Chair, the correction, I'm going to be providing the update since I worked on this contract, even though David Self did, but he's currently out, I believe, today.
Okay, thank you, General Counsel Wallace. You're recognized at this time. You and
Okay.
VP Sykes. Thank you.
VP Sykes, I'll defer to you first.
Thank you, Attorney Wallace, and thank you, Chair Harper. Good afternoon to you, members of the Board of Trustees and President Beard. I am pleased to reintroduce Coach Crary to this board and recommend his contract for approval. I believe that Coach Crary is best suited for this role based on where we find ourselves in the current landscape of college basketball. I am grateful that in Coach Crary, we have hired a coach who is excited to be here and take on the challenge of leading this program. I do not believe that this is a risky hire because of his proven track record and his enthusiasm about being here. He has a winning pedigree and has a history of sustaining successful programs. During Coach Crary's time as an NAIA head coach, he led his team to a 71-68 victory over Howard University, who was led by the 2023 MEAC Coach of the Year, Kenny Blakeney. Blakeney has since led his team to back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. He also defeated Central State, who at the time was led by Dante Jackson, who is now the head coach at Grambling State University. Jackson, also a former NAIA coach, was named 2024 SWAC Coach of the Year and led his team to the NCAA tournament this season. With less resources, head-to-head, Patrick Crary has defeated the Conference Coach of the Year of both Division I HBCU athletic conferences. This is another testament to his high-level coaching ability. I'm not alone in my support of Patrick Crary as head coach. Just this week, we received a $20,000 donation from a supporter who has asked to remain anonymous in support of Coach Crary in this role and his leadership of the men's basketball program. This is one of the largest sports-specific donations from an individual donor this year. When considering what is best for our students, I believe leadership by Patrick Crary, who is not only a proven winner, but a role model, is what's best for FAMU basketball at this time. He has nothing in his personal history that would pose a reputational risk for this institution. The $150,000 salary that is presented in the one-year contract is within our approved athletics budget and over $30,000 less than the average salary within our conference. I am grateful for the board's support of a one-year contract, but would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that I believe a one-year contract is risky. The last 2 years, the men's basketball program performed below the NCAA's minimum APR threshold, reporting scores of 808 in 21-22 and 915 in 22-23. This has driven our multi-year score below the NCAA's required 930 for access to postseason. I believe we need long-term consistency at the top to course correct the impact of the program's recent academic performance and protect access to postseason for FAMU's basketball program. This departure from not only FAMU, but industry standard contract terms leads to uncertainty and instability that does not align with FAMU's strategic priority number 5, organizational effectiveness and transformation, which focuses on the successful implementation of best practices and institutional sustainability for recruiting, retaining, and developing employees. We need continuity in this role because it's what's best for our staff, the athletics program, and most importantly, it's what's best for our students. A one-year contract impacts our ability to not only recruit the most talented students, but our ability to recruit and retain talented staff. That said, I am eager to move forward with the one-year contract that has been presented for Patrick Crary. In conclusion, I am eager to move forward for what I believe will be long-term stability, and I'm confident that Coach Crary's leadership will bring an immediate positive impact to our basketball program. I appreciate the board's support in approving the one-year contract and look forward to the success that Coach Crary will achieve in this pivotal year. Thank you for this consideration, and I yield to Attorney Wallace.
Trustee Gibbons, I believe I've presented the one-year contract. What we have, he has a one-year contract that was in effect signed July 8th, 2024, and goes through the term of June 30th, 2025. That is a contract that was executed, I believe, on July 8th between former President Robinson and Coach Query. That contract is before you. However, that contract did not have the incentives which you said at the last meeting the AD should go back and include. So we have prepared an addendum to that one-page contract, which is actually 3 pages, and it has the incentives. It has a $20,000 signing bonus. Those funds were secured by the boosters, and they'll be paying those funds. It also has incentives for him should he become a SWAC Coach of the Year, and also additional incentives should he go on and play in NCAA tournaments and NIT tournaments. And those incentives were given to me by the AD. So if you need her to explain the basis of those, she can, but that's it. And then the regular terms that he would get as an AMP employee. So his benefits and all like that, which are statutory, and he gets those no matter what, all employees. Now, the interesting thing about this is that other coaches have a similar 1-year AMP contract. However, they don't have incentives, tied to them. So what we're trying to do is give him the incentives that were set forth in the proposed 3-year, which you all said at the last board meeting that the AD could consider. And that's what's before you all today. It is clearly a 1-year contract, and the date will become effective up to whenever it's executed, up through a year from today's date.
And Madam Chairman, I did corroborate with VP Sachs and General Counsel Wallace on this particular contract, and I'm in agreement with it. We did review it. Some things we were able to perhaps leave for later dates, but I feel pretty good about this particular contract. Thank you.
Thank you, President Beard, General Counsel Wallace, and VP AD Sykes. Does that conclude your presentation before we open the floor for discussion and/or a vote?
It does. Yes, for me.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Last we talked about the contract, we specifically talked about adding in incentives. My only question on the incentives is, are the incentives within our current budget? Meaning, did we add incentives that would take us, and I know when I say above our budget, it's somewhat of a misnomer because we're already above budget, but are the incentives that we're adding in taking us further into the red, I guess is my question.
That would be best addressed by AD Sykes because she knows where the incentives come from.
Thank you. We have, since I've been in this role, we have paid incentives out of funds that are available through our foundation accounts. So it would not have any direct impact on our budget.
Okay. Great. I'll recognize Trustee Stone, and then we'll make a comment and recognize any additional trustees. Go ahead, Trustee Stone. You're recognized by the chair.
Thanks, Chair Harper. I move to approve the contract.
Is there a second?
Second, clap.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the contract for Coach Patrick Crary. Is there any unreadiness at this time? And I will start. I will certainly do support the 1-year contract. Unfortunately, I was not able to be on the meeting last week when the initial proposed 3-year contract was provided. So while I do support the 1-year contract, and I certainly appreciate the concerns that were raised by trustees as it relates to managing risk based on historical contracts of the university with athletics personnel and/or head coaches, I do want to remind us that outside of the president, personnel decisions are that of ultimately for intercollegiate athletics. The president has ultimate authority for intercollegiate athletics, and personnel decisions of everyone else at the university are that of the hiring manager. Our only employee, as we well know, is the president. Also, and there is a very clear line between governance and between operations. And that's one of those lines as it relates to personnel. Also, it was interesting to learn that this 1-year contract that is being proposed and voted upon today is inconsistent with the practices of the SWAC, where 3 and 4 year contracts are the norm and the range. So I am going to vote in favor of this motion. However, I really encourage us to empower the president, who has the ultimate authority for intercollegiate athletics, and to ensure that we stay in our appropriate role in the governance role and as fiduciaries of this institution. With that, I will recognize Trustee May. You're muted.
Right, it was a question for AD Sykes. I don't know if I'm able to ask it during this unreadiness period.
Yes, you can.
So since the goal is to ensure long-term success and improvement with the men's basketball program, what contract duration do you believe will be most effective in achieving these goals?
I believe that a 4-year contract is actually most appropriate for a Division I head coach. However, the practice at FAMU for head coaches of men's and women's basketball and football is a 3-year contract, and I would be in support of moving forward with a 3-year contract when that opportunity becomes available.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands right now as it relates to unreadiness. So at this time, the chair will call for all those in favor. Please show by the sign of aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. And those who are opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Coach Crary.
Thank you.
We've just heard the presentation this morning during the latter part of our retreat from Trustee White regarding the gift report. Are there any outstanding questions or actions that need to be taken by the board at this time related to the gift report? Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Trustee Stone, you're recognized.
no, Chair Harper, I just wanted you to repeat that. What are you creating space for? Just further conversation about this? Go
Yes,
ahead.
sorry, let me finish it up. Wanted to see if there are any questions and if there is a motion to accept the gift report.
Gotcha.
Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
The only question I had was to the question raised earlier about sort of timelines and timelines for the work plan. If we could roll that into the acceptance of the motion with, coming back to the board with a clear timeline and work plan for when those recommendations, which recommendations will be taken up and how they will be implemented.
Trustee Clatt, you're recognized.
That was a very good comment, but I believe we left it up to the president to come back to us with the recommendations. If he were to accept those or to amend them or to add to them, but I believe that was our discussion and our agreements.
Yeah, and that's what I tried to convey, like which recommendations and the timeline.
Thank you. Trustee Stone, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, I think picking up the recommendations and the strategy going forward is obviously really important. One thing I would like to see is just how we plan on rebuilding trust with a lot of stakeholders here, and especially the donors and the people that give to this institution. I think voicing what changes we're going to make is important, and voicing it the right way. So just any more detail on that, I think to see this plan all the way through is really important, and I look forward to learning more about that.
Thank you for those comments. So the chair will entertain a motion at this time to accept the gift report with any or all or none of the suggestions that have been put on the floor during this discussion.
I
Trustee
move,
Lawson,
Chair,
you're recognized.
I move, Chair, that we accept the report with the understanding that at our September meeting, the president and slash Dr. Palm will share with us their work plan as far as how they're going to go about digesting and executing on the recommendations that were made, which will include which ones we will act on and which ones, maybe saved for a later date. But I think it's important for us to have that vision of, when these things will get done. So the long-winded motion, but, quickly summarize, September, President / Donald Palm will share with us the work plan, as well as which initiatives will be implemented and when.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the gift report to include a work plan that includes recommendations and actions presented by the president and COO Palm at the September board meeting. Is there any unreadiness? Trustee Klatt, you're recognized, and then I have a friendly amendment.
My question would be, should we ask President Beard if September timeline is doable? Because we have to keep in mind, we have an interim president who's been in place for 10 days. And we also have the beginning of his first fall semester. And we also have a major report that just came out that we're looking for answers on. And he's assessing his staff. Is all of that doable? Are we rushing through this? Yesterday, we received the presentation about going through this process, that it cannot be rushed because you're not going to get the best results. So I completely understand the request, and we should have a date, but I think the president should have some input versus us telling him to have this information for us at the September meeting, and it's not the best information because it was rushed.
I think within 30 days, that's reasonable. I think
We're gonna
given the
hold you to it.
immediacy, well, given the impact and implications of this report, I think it's very high priority. I think within 30 days is reasonable.
Very good, sir, because we're gonna hold you to it.
That's what I want you to do.
Thank you. And I believe that it's actually been less than 10 days because officially President Beard's first starting day was this past Monday. So I will give you an opportunity.
Really?
Go ahead, Trustee Klatt. Okay. All right. My friendly amendment is around the inclusion of VP Malashevsky. As we know, he is one of a handful of employees who report to this board, but operationally and managerially report to the president, and is typically responsible for summarizing corrective action plans and ensuring that those corrective action plans are put in place and that coordination occurs. So I believe that that is the core of his responsibility, and that position does report technically to the board. So that is, and I see President Beard shaking his head. So that would be my friendly amendment to add VP Malashevsky to that list of accountable parties to come back to this board with next steps.
Madam Chair, I accept your friendly amendment.
Thank you. Is there any additional unreadiness or discussion at this time? Trustee Ali, you're recognized.
Can we add the general counsel? Can we add the general counsel?
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have no problem accepting. It's just, we have an attorney involved in Attorney McLaughlin, but if that is the desire, I have no problems accepting that friendly amendment as well.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
I would suggest, if we're going to keep adding folks, that maybe we just leave it to the discretion of the president and who he deems fit to include in this team. Because
Is that in the form of an amendment, Trustee
yes,
Washington?
that would be my friendly amendment. So instead of listing out individuals, just defer to the president and allow him to choose which members of the team would be bringing that back to us.
So we acquiesce to the original amendment and we vote on it and go forward.
Yes, and I, as the original maker of the motion, I will accept the last friendly amendment from Trustee Washington, giving the president the authority to decide the team, because as you guys know, the bigger the team, the slower the process. So I accept Nicole's as the last friendly amendment.
Okay, Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized.
No, I mean, I think Trustee Lawson and Trustee Washington summed it up. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, it doesn't require a second, but thank you for your support. Is there any additional unreadiness before the chair calls for the vote? So just to summarize the motion is on the floor is to accept the report, the gift report, to include a work plan that executes recommendations and actions presented by the president, the COO, and whomever the president designates by the September board meeting. At this time, all those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much. Our final agenda item today is approval of the consent agenda. The following items are included on our consent agenda. From the Direct Support Organizations Committee, DSO 1, 2024-2025 National Alumni Association Budget, DSO 2, 2024-2025 Rattler Boosters Budget, DSO 3, Honorary Naming of the Fogg Planetarium Challenger Learning Center. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none, is there anything that needs to be added to the consent agenda or any proposed changes? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for approval.
Move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Is there any unreadiness at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. So thank you. Is there any additional business we need to address as a board before we give the opportunity for President Beard to greet us in his official capacity? He's already done so yesterday during our retreat, but certainly want to give him the opportunity again in this capacity and in this role and in this forum with our board meeting. President Beard.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I think we've had 2 very productive days. I'm a man of few words sometimes. I think a lot has been said. I think at this point, there's work to be done. We will continue to evaluate our team. I think we sent out the 100 days action plan. It will be modified to some degree, but we are just happy to be here at FAMU. It's a great place to work at the #1 HBCU, but we have a lot of work to continue to do. And I just solicit your support of my team and this institution as we go forward. As I said earlier, FAMU forward, FAMU forever, no excuses. We want to get the job done and be the leadership team that we need to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Beard, and again, welcome aboard. So with 3 minutes to spare, I will conclude and adjourn this meeting. We will see you in September at our retreat and board meeting. Have a great day, and thank you so much.
Thank you.